Today we're going to talk about solving one and two-step equations, and we're going to start today with some one-step equations. This should be a review for you, so please make sure you understand what you're doing. Alright, first we're going to start with x plus 14 equals 21. Remember, the goal of solving an equation is to always have your variable on one side of the equal sign and your constant or your solution on the other side of the equal sign. And in order to move things from side to side, you're going to do the opposite operation from what you have. So on this one, we want the x to be alone, so we need to get rid of a plus 14. So to get rid of the plus 14, we're going to subtract 14. And remember, what you do to one side, you always have to do to the other. So those 14s are going to reduce out to 0. So now I have x is equal to 21 minus 14 is 7. And we are going to require that you check all of your solutions, and you need to follow through every step of your check. So the first thing you're going to do is substitute in the value you got for x. So I'm going to have 7 plus 14 equals 21. And then 7 plus 14 is 21. So I have a balanced equation, so it checks. The next one we're going to do is x minus 6 equals negative 14. So in order to get rid of this minus 6, we're going to add 6 to both sides. Those 6's add up to 0. So I'm left with x equals negative 14 plus 6 is negative 8. So I'm going to go over here and check it and plug in negative 8 for x. So I have negative 8 minus 6 equals negative 14. So if I keep change this, negative 8 plus negative 6 is negative 14. So again, I have a balanced equation, so it checks. For number 3, this is the same thing as saying x divided by 3, or you could call it 1/3 x. So in order to get rid of a divide by 3, what we do is we multiply both sides by 3. Those 3's reduce to 1, so I'm left with x equals negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. So again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check by plugging in negative 6 for x. So I have negative 6 divided by 3 should equal negative 2. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So again, I have a balanced equation. And remember, you do have to fully check all of your equations. So we should see every single step. Alright, for the last example on one step, I have a multiplication. This is a 4 times x, so the opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. Those 4's reduce out. So I have x is equal to negative 8. Again, I'm going to check it by doing 4 times negative 8 equals negative 32. And 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. So it checks. Notice in every single one of my checks, I end up with a balanced equation. So I have 21 equals 21. So it should always be equal at the end. Alright, we're going to move on and do some two-step equations now. So the first thing I do is, when you do a two-step equation, you always want to do almost a reverse PEMDAS. So in regular PEMDAS, addition and subtraction is at the end. So to solve an equation, you're going to always start with your addition and subtraction. So in this case, I have 2x minus 7. So in order to undo this, I would divide by 2. To undo this, I would add 7. And since I always want to start with addition and subtraction, I'll start there. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. Those reduce out. So I have 2x equals negative 31 plus 7 is negative 24. And then now, to get x alone, I'm going to get rid of the times 2 by dividing by 2. And these 2's reduce out. So I have x equals negative 12. So again, I need to go up and do the full check. So I'm just going to substitute in negative 12 for x. So I have negative 2 times 12 minus 7 should equal negative 31. So negative 2 times 12 is negative 24, minus 7 should equal negative 31. And if I keep change this, I get negative 31 equals negative 31, so I check. Okay, on the next example, there's no sign in front of the 25, which means it's a plus 25. So I'm going to start there instead of the times negative 2. So I'm going to start by subtracting 25 from both sides. And now I'm left with negative 2x equals negative 14. And then I'm going to get rid of the negative 2 times negative 2 by dividing by negative 2. And the negative 2 is reduced to 1, so I'm left with x equals positive 7. So again, for the check, I'll plug it in. So I have 25 minus 2 times 7 should equal 11. So 25 minus 14 equals 11. And 25 minus 14 is 11, so I check. Now let's try some two-step equations, some more two-step equations. A lot of times what you'll see is the variables on the right side instead of the left side. You can solve it either way, but I know some people like to reverse it, but I'll do this one by just solving it straight. So I'm going to start with, I want my variables on this side, so I'm going to get rid of this plus 6 by subtracting 6 from both sides. So 15 minus 6 is 9, which equals, those reduce out to 0, so negative 3x. To get rid of a times negative 3, I'm going to divide by negative 3, and 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3, equals x. So I'm going to go back over here and check it. So I have 15 equals 6 minus 3 times negative 3. So I have 15 equals 6 plus 9. So 15 equals 6 plus 9 is 15. So I'm going to check it. Alright, so for this one, if you want, the other thing you can do is rewrite the equation if you don't like the variable on the right-hand side. So if you want to go ahead and do that, then I would say negative 9, negative 9, sorry, that should not say, x plus 2x equals negative 17. So all I'm doing is I'm switching this over here and this to over there. So again, I'm going to add subtract first. So this is a minus 9, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. Those 9's equal 0. So I have 2x equals negative 17 plus 9 is negative 8. And then I'm going to divide by 2 to get rid of the times 2. And I get x equals negative 4. So I'll go over here and check it. Negative 17 equals negative 9 plus 2 times negative 4. Negative 17 equals negative 9 minus 8 or plus a negative 8. And then negative 17 equals negative 9 plus negative 8 is negative 17. So I check.